36 notches, 36 lives taken by one man, an individual the Union Army named the Ghost of the Tennessee. Yet what transformed a 57-year-old tobacco farmer into the most deadly sniper of the Civil War? And for what reason has history attempted so diligently to forget his narrative? This is not a story of battlefields or of blue and gray. This is the true account of Jack Henson, a man who declined to choose a side until the war chose for him. Imagine this, a father witnessing Union soldiers place his son's severed heads upon his own fence. A neighbor killed over a grudge held for decades. A marksman so dreaded, generals pledged $300 in gold, a sum sufficient to purchase a town, for his scalp. Yet you will not see his name within your textbook. Tonight we uncover the unvarnished truth, how a neutral farmer out-sniped entire Union regiments, how he led Confederate legend Nathan Bedford Forrest to destroy an empire of Union provisions, and how the U.S. Army devoted 2 years pursuing a phantom who knew every inch of the land between the rivers, for it was his own backyard. Was he a hero, a terrorist, or merely a shattered man who measured his sorrow in bullet scars? Stay with us, because what you will discover alters all you believed you understood about the Civil War's darkest corners. But before we start, remember to like and subscribe to our channel to help support our community. When Jack Henson first built his extensive tobacco plantation across the rich lowlands of Stewart County, Tennessee, he could hardly have conceived that his property would one day sit at the center of a vicious struggle between North and South. The area, later called the land between the rivers by residents for its location between the Cumberland and Tennessee rivers, became a chessboard for military tacticians. Its sharp ridges provided natural defenses, while its collection of successful farms offered endless resources for armies. However, as Tennessee entered the Confederacy in 1861, Henson held to a precarious neutrality, divided between his Southern heritage and a pragmatist's wish to safeguard his family and estate. Henson's property, like many in the area, had been shaped from the land by generations of enslaved labor. But by the war's beginning, he had made the difficult choice to emancipate his enslaved workers, an action that caused neighbors to gossip. Many formerly enslaved families decided to remain as paid workers, a complex situation showing both lingering attachments and fragile faith. This fragile peace fractured when 2 of Henson's sons, caught in the passion of Southern rebellion, enlisted with Confederate irregulars. These irregular units, made up of local hunters, farmers, and idealists, fought a shadow war against Union occupiers, employing their intimate knowledge of backwoods paths to carry out devastating ambushes. Union commanders, used to orderly European-style combat, became increasingly unnerved by this irregular fighting. Their young recruits, many experiencing their first battle, jumped at every snapping twig, their paranoia escalating into harsh retaliations against civilians. It is here that Henson's story takes its most tragic turn. Oral histories from the region speak of Union troops raiding the Henson farm in 1862, supposedly arresting 2 more sons under suspicion of being bushwhackers. The boys, according to the account, were promptly executed, their lifeless heads placed on gateposts as a grim warning. But like numerous Civil War stories, fact and myth intertwine. No official military records verify the atrocity, leaving experts in disagreement. Was this horror the catalyst that changed a neutral farmer into Old Jack, the famed Confederate sniper? Or had Henson's neutrality always been a disguise, a method to collect Union intelligence while acting the reluctant host to blue-coat officers billeted on his property? Skeptics point out that Henson's subsequent actions, a lethal campaign targeting Union River traffic, required military-grade rifles not typically owned by a simple farmer. This supports theories that he had been secretly supplied by Confederate commanders who foresaw the area's strategic importance. Others contend the trauma of losing his sons, whether in battle or to alleged execution, reflects the experiences of countless Southern families, ordinary people radicalized by the brutality of occupation. What is certain is that Henson's story embodies the Civil War's corrosive impact on communities, where rivers and ridges became both refuge and killing ground, and neutrality frequently proved an unattainable ideal. Henson's extensive farmstead, situated in the fertile bends of the Tennessee River, briefly hosted an unexpected guest, Union General Ulysses S. Grant. The general's staff officers seized the property during their 1862 advance into the area, their polished boots tracking mud across Henson's hand-cut floors. This occupation, a bitter irony given Henson's later fame, signaled the start of his downfall. While historians dispute his exact motivations, most concur that Union occupation policies forged his fury. Troops stripped farms bare under military necessity, decrees taking corn cribs and slaughtering cattle herds, leaving families to face winter with empty pantries. Even the Union's emancipationist ideals soured here. Soldiers freed enslaved laborers only to press them into trench-digging details, exchanging plantation overseers for army taskmasters. The ultimate insult came when blue-coated soldiers set fire to Henson's homestead, flames consuming decades of work in a single night. As his wife held their youngest daughter to her chest, Henson watched smoke rise where his barn once stood, a man who had built his life through calloused hands, now left with only the rifle he had concealed in a hayrake. Neighbors whispered he stood unmoving for hours, murmuring, "A man can't kneel when they burn his knees out." His vengeance started with a neighbor, a Swiss immigrant Henson claimed had betrayed Confederate sympathizers to Union patrols. Their feud, brewing since a disputed boundary marker in '58, exploded on New Year's Eve, 1862. Henson followed the man to a frost-covered creek bed, his Kentucky long rifle firing a single crack. The shot echoed through hollows where boys had once fished together, a personal war nested inside the national catastrophe. Now fully allied with the Confederate irregulars, Henson became a specter of the rivers. He memorized the Tennessee's lazy bends where Union gunboats slowed, their paddle wheels churning white foam. Nestled in limestone bluffs, he'd wait days for a gold epauletted officer to step onto a deck. His .50 caliber Old Vengeance spoke with biblical finality, each kill recorded by a knife gouge in the rifle's walnut stock. Union troops exchanged terrified rumors of a phantom who could shoot around corners, though the truth was simpler. Henson knew every ripple and sycamore shadow from a lifetime of hunting these waters. The notches reached 36 by war's end, though grizzled veterans at Crossroads Taverns swore he'd topped 100. His legend peaked when he guided Nathan Bedford Forrest's cavalry through backcountry trails to sack the Union Depot at Johnsonville in 1864. As flames consumed mountains of Union bacon and bullets, Henson stood apart, a farmer turned arsonist watching his enemy's supplies vanish into smoke. Union commanders offered $300 in gold for his head, a king's ransom that attracted bounty hunters and traders. Yet Henson outsmarted them all, once hiding for 3 days submerged in a cypress swamp, breathing through a hollow reed as search parties crisscrossed the shore. Peace brought no comfort. His son Robert, who'd led guerrilla raids in his father's shadow, fell to a Union ambush weeks before Appomattox. 2 daughters died in a drafty refugee shack, their coughs worsening with each icy dawn. Henson buried them beside the charred remains of his porch, their graves marked with river stones. The reunited nation had no use for his story. Reconstruction-era Tennessee preferred tales of reconciliation, not a gaunt widower who'd once pinned Union officers like target cards at a county fair. Only in the 1920s did historians exhume his name from dusty pension files and widows' diaries, sparking debates. Was he a principled irregular or a glorified murderer? A defender of home or a man who'd lost too much to stop? Today, his rifle rests in a Nashville museum, notches worn smooth by generations of curious fingers. Tour guides call him the Civil War's deadliest shot, but old families along the Tennessee still lower their voices when recounting how war turned a tobacco farmer into a wraith and how vengeance, once ignited, burns longer than any homestead. 36 notches, 36 souls. But Jack Henson's true toll can't be carved into wood. Ask yourself, how many fathers became snipers? How many farmers learned to count vengeance in bullets? And what does it cost a man to trade his plowshare for a rifle he'd never put down? Here's what they don't teach you. The Civil War wasn't just armies clashing. It was neighbors ambushing neighbors. It was fathers burying children. And for every hero in the history books, there's a Jack Henson, a man who walked off his farm and into the shadows, leaving us to ask, was he right? His rifles in a museum, his stories in the mud of Tennessee, and those 36 notches? They're not just kills. They're questions. Questions about loyalty, justice, and what happens when war comes knocking on your porch.